One last dud before the grand finale with NES Works Episode 34. We've almost reached the end of 1986, and the final NES release for November of that year is a pretty big title in terms of historic import. It is not, however, very fun, especially in this rendition. Data East's second NES release feels in a lot of ways like an echo of their first. As with Tag Team Wrestling, Karate Champ is based on a Technos-developed arcade creation, was converted to NES by SAS Sakata, involves one-on-one fighting, and most of all is incredibly dated and joyous. In its original arcade incarnation, Karate Champ was a pretty big deal. It began making its vendor rounds in late 1984, right around the same time that Nintendo shipped the Famicom version of NES's first fighting game, Urban Champion. Karate Champ made Urban Champion look, well, like the simplistic LCD game it was. Where Urban Champion gave players 2 attack buttons and the ability to raise and lower their guard, Karate Champ tried to simulate competitive karate with an inventive 2-joystick setup that allowed for a huge variety of attack and defense combinations. The fact that Karate Champ tries to emulate actual competitive karate matches makes it fairly unique among fighters. Sure, other games had previously and have since tried to approximate the sport of tournament karate, but Karate Champ took it seriously. Rather than regulating matches according to player stamina, Karate Champ uses a simple point system. Depending on the blow either you or your rival land, you're awarded either a point or a half point. The first player to 2 points wins the round, and the first player to win 2 rounds takes the match. I don't know competitive karate all that well, but it certainly seems authentic. Karate Champ represented a pretty huge leap over previous fighting games. Besides its focus on athletic verisimilitude, it also played a lot better than the clunky primitive fighters that preceded it. A big part of Karate Champ's success had to do with the aforementioned dual stick setup. By pressing the controllers in different directions, players could execute a huge variety of moves. Everything from simple forward punches to flying kicks to reversals. The combination of fluid dynamic controls and extremely quick matches made Karate Champ quite impressive in its arcade incarnation. It's widely regarded as a cornerstone of the modern fighting genre, and deservedly so. Combine this game with Irem's Kung Fu and you basically have Street Fighter. Sadly though, this episode is not about the arcade version of Karate Champ. No, this is about the NES version, and that version is terrible. I'm not really sure where the NES version went wrong. It would be easy to blame its failings on the difference in control schemes. A D-pad and 2 buttons is no substitute for twin sticks, as any Robotron 2084 fan can tell you. And yet, I don't think that's really the issue. Sure, Karate Champ feels a little clumsy on NES, but your martial artist possesses a pretty respectable range of skills. What you lose in versatility here, the game makes up for by substituting situational actions. Many of your attacks depend not only on which button combo you press, but also your stance and relation to your opponent at the time. It's complex, and it requires a lot of practice, but you can still perform more or less all of the arcade game's actions. Though the loss of twin sticks alone doesn't account for what makes this rendition so poor. Visually, you can't really fault the conversion. No, it doesn't look quite as good as the arcade original, but it's not like Karate Champ was some world beater in terms of graphics to begin with. This port matches its visual compromises to embellishments, details not seen in the arcade game, so it's pretty much a wash. If you can fumble your way through the lopsided and unintuitive matches, you'll encounter a pleasant variety of backgrounds and scenarios ranging from dingy subways to ancient temples to tropical plants silhouetted against the sunset, a good 25 years before that became a tired gaming cliche. It doesn't even sound bad. There's not a lot of music to speak of in Karate Champ, but what little exists sounds nice. And it's absolutely packed with voice samples. Probably the most we've heard on NES outside of maybe Stack Up, in fact. No, all the ingredients are here for a successful arcade conversion, and yet Karate Champ on NES is pretty dreadful. The problem, quite simply, is that Karate Champ plays like a vague, incomprehensible mess on NES. In a game that consists entirely of 2 men trying to land a single punch or kick on one another, you'd think the programmers would prioritize collision detection and hit registration. But that would definitely not be the case here. Karate Champ on NES boils down to a test of sheer luck. How do you land a blow on your opponent? How do you block an incoming strike? Who knows? It's all a mystery. The game just kinda does its own thing. Sometimes a strike lands, sometimes it doesn't. There's no active blocking here, and as in the worst fighting games, you can pretty much just hammer on the attack buttons and have the same odds of winning as if you take a calculated and strategic approach. You can pull off that same crazy number of moves here, roundhouse kicks, flying leaps, straight punches, leg sweeps, and more, but due to the contextual nature of the controls, it's often hard to know which inputs will result in a specific action at any given moment. Things get especially touchy once you and your opponent mix things up by leaping over one another. Your fighters don't always change their orientation right away, so trying to get the advantage over your foe by flying over his head for a reversal has a good chance of leaving you with your back exposed, which is not really a key to victory. There's also no seeming rhyme or reason as to why the judge grants points, or merely half points, to successful blows. I found I've had the best luck in Karate Champ by eschewing the enormous range of moves available to your warrior, and simply going in for straight punches. Careful attempts to outmaneuver the CPU with wily moves universally results in losses. Walking right up and punching him in the chest, though, that's an ironclad strategy. The one time I've been able to reach what I think is the final match of the game, I did so by using this utterly brain-dead tactic. Of course, it helps that the computer frequently would grant me a full point for these direct strikes, though it should be said, it wouldn't always give me a full point. In short, developer SAS Sakata took a revolutionary arcade game and rendered it into a sloppy mess for NES. While the technical elements here hold up a lot better than those of, say, 1942, fundamentally this game is just as shoddy a port. Worse, the arcade game's popular interstitial minigames have been reduced here from 3 to 1. I hope you like dodging flower pots because you won't be punching bulls. So chalk this up as another entry in the NES miss column. Karate Champ has a meaningful place in video game history, not even getting into the legal precedent it helped provide to clear the way for derivative one-on-one fighters, but that place is definitely not the NES. Even here, early in the system's run in the US, we've seen ample evidence that the console really wasn't up to matching contemporary coin-op releases. And that's fine, because Commando hinted at the console's eventual path to victory. Before long, Commando-style augmented arcade conversions would become a highlight of the NES, leaving direct ports like Karate Champ to the unimaginative or the apathetic. Next on NES Works, we wrap 1986 with the arrival of a true NES titan, and it is glorious.